They are two of the most respected military forces on the planet, one forged in the waters of Vietnam and the mountains of Afghanistan, the other carrying a legacy that stretches back over 350 years to the deck guns of warships that ruled the seas. Both units produce warriors capable of extraordinary feats. Both have proven themselves in combat across every environment Earth has to offer. But when you strip away the support systems, remove the technology, eliminate the extraction options, and place them in the most hostile environment humans have ever attempted to survive, something happens that challenges everything we think we know about elite military training. What I am about to show you is why the first 72 hours in Antarctic conditions exposed a gap so fundamental that the word humiliation started appearing in after-action reports. And before you assume this is simply about cold weather experience, I need you to understand that the unit that struggled had operators who had completed cold weather training. They had the equipment, they had the physical conditioning. What they lacked was something that cannot be taught in a training module. Something that takes generations to build into a military unit's DNA. By the end of this video, you will understand why one force walked out of that frozen wasteland while the other had to be evacuated, and the reason will change how you think about what makes a military unit truly elite. The Antarctic Peninsula, the most extreme environment on Earth where humans attempt military operations. Winter temperatures dropping below -50 degrees Celsius with wind chill. Winds exceeding 160 kilometers per hour. Visibility that can drop to zero in minutes. Crevasse fields that swallow men without warning. This is not the Arctic. The Arctic is harsh. The Antarctic is actively trying to kill you every second you exist within it. There are no indigenous peoples here. No traditional knowledge passed down through generations. No human being lived here until the 20th century. Every lesson learned in Antarctica was paid for in blood and frozen corpses. Let me tell you about the two forces we are examining because their histories contain everything you need to understand what happens next. The United States Navy SEALs trace their lineage to the underwater demolition teams of World War II, frogmen who cleared beach obstacles before amphibious landings. The SEAL teams were officially established in 1962, and since then they have become arguably the most famous special operations force in the world. Their selection process is legendary. Basic underwater demolition SEAL training, known as BUD-S, has an attrition rate approaching 80%. Hell Week alone breaks most candidates. The men who earn the trident are exceptional by any measure. Physically elite, mentally unbreakable, trained to operate in maritime environments, in desert compounds, in mountain hideouts. They are versatile warriors designed to go anywhere and accomplish any mission. Now let me tell you about the Royal Marines, because this is where the story takes a turn most people do not expect. The Royal Marines were founded in 1664. They have been fighting continuously for over 350 years. But here is what matters for our scenario. In 1969, the Royal Marines were assigned a specific NATO role: the defense of Norway's northern flank against Soviet invasion. This was not a training exercise. This was strategic reality. If the Cold War turned hot, Royal Marines would be fighting and surviving in Arctic conditions for weeks or months with limited support. This mission requirement fundamentally shaped everything about how the Royal Marines train, equip, and think. Every Royal Marine, not just the specialists, every single Marine, completes extensive cold weather training in Norway. This is not optional. This is not a module for selected personnel. This is basic requirement for wearing the Green Beret. The mountain leader, cadre, within the Royal Marines represents some of the most skilled cold weather warfare specialists in the world. They have been refining Antarctic and Arctic doctrine since before most current operators were born. Norwegian winters are not a training location for them. Norwegian winters are home. The distinction I need you to grasp is this: the SEALs trained to tolerate cold, the Royal Marines trained to live in it. That difference sounds subtle when you read it in a briefing document. When you are standing on Antarctic ice with the temperature dropping and the wind rising, that difference becomes the line between walking out and being carried out. The scenario is based on a joint exercise conducted in the South Shetland Islands, just off the Antarctic Peninsula. Both units were tasked with a 72-hour survival and movement exercise across glaciated terrain, limited equipment, no external support. Navigation to a designated extraction point 40 kilometers away, across ice fields, crevasse zones, and exposed ridgelines. The exercise was designed to test extended cold weather survival capabilities. It tested far more than anyone anticipated. Most people think Antarctica kills you with cold. That is true, but it is incomplete. Antarctica kills you with wind. The katabatic winds that pour off the continental ice sheet can accelerate to hurricane force with almost no warning. These winds do not just make you cold. They make standing upright impossible. They blind you with driven snow. They strip heat from your body faster than any biological system can replace it. A calm Antarctic day can become a survival emergency in 15 minutes. Understanding this changes everything about how you must operate. Hour 1. Both teams are inserted at the starting point. Weather conditions are acceptable. -22 degrees Celsius. Wind at 30 kilometers per hour. Visibility, good. Both teams conduct equipment checks and prepare for movement. And this is where the first critical difference emerges, a difference that seems minor but will compound over the next 3 days until it becomes the margin between success and evacuation. The SEAL team is equipped with the finest cold weather gear American military procurement can provide. Latest generation, extreme cold weather clothing system, battery-heated base layers, advanced synthetic insulation, vapor barrier systems designed by the best textile engineers money can buy. Their equipment represents millions of dollars of research and development. On paper, it is superior to anything else in the world. The Royal Marines arrive with equipment that looks almost antiquated by comparison. Layered natural fiber systems, traditional Ventil cotton, outer shells, wool, and down insulation. Simple, mechanical designs with no electronics, no batteries, no sophisticated moisture management membranes. If you stood both teams next to each other and asked which was better equipped, almost anyone would point to the Americans. Almost anyone would be wrong. Here is what the equipment difference reveals about doctrinal philosophy. American cold weather gear is designed for maximum protection during operations of limited duration. It assumes the operator will return to a heated environment. It assumes resupply is available. It assumes that technology can solve problems that traditional approaches solved through technique and discipline. This philosophy works beautifully when those assumptions hold true. British cold weather gear is designed for something different. It is designed for operators who may not see heated shelter for weeks. It is designed to be repaired in the field with basic materials. It is designed to function when batteries die, when membranes fail, when everything that can go wrong does go wrong. The philosophy is not optimization. The philosophy is sustainability. And in Antarctica, sustainability is survival. Hour 6. Both teams are making progress. The SEALs are moving efficiently, covering ground at an impressive pace. Their superior physical conditioning is evident. These are athletes operating at the highest human levels. They have covered approximately 12 kilometers. The Royal Marines have covered 9 kilometers. They are moving more slowly, more deliberately. They seem almost relaxed compared to the aggressive American pace. What the SEALs do not yet realize is that they are making a mistake that will cost them everything. They are generating heat through exertion. That heat produces moisture. That moisture is being wicked away by their advanced base layers exactly as designed. But the moisture has to go somewhere. It migrates outward through the clothing system and begins to freeze in the insulation layers. This process is invisible. It is gradual, and it is relentless. Every hour of aggressive movement adds more frozen moisture to their insulation. Every hour degrades the thermal protection they are depending on to survive. The Royal Marines are moving at a pace calibrated to avoid significant perspiration. This is not because they are less fit. This is because they have learned, through decades of institutional experience, that sweat is death in extreme cold. Their clothing system is designed to breathe naturally, to prevent moisture accumulation without relying on membrane technology. Their pace is not lazy, it is tactical. They are fighting the cold with discipline rather than equipment. By hour 12, the gap in distance covered has narrowed. The SEALs are at 20 kilometers. The Royal Marines are at 18. But something else has happened that the distance measurements do not capture. 3 SEAL operators are beginning to feel the cold more acutely. Their insulation is degrading. They are working harder to maintain core temperature. They are burning more calories, consuming more water, generating more fatigue. The Royal Marines are maintaining steady state. Their systems are functioning exactly as designed. Hour 18. The first significant weather event, wind speed increases to 70 kilometers per hour. Visibility drops to 50 meters. Temperature drops to -34 Celsius. Both teams must establish emergency shelter and wait out the conditions. This is where the difference between training for cold and living in cold becomes impossible to ignore. The SEAL team's shelter doctrine emphasizes equipment solutions, advanced bivouac systems, engineered shelters designed for rapid deployment. The problem is that deploying these shelters in 70 km/h winds with frozen fingers and limited visibility is extraordinarily difficult. Zippers freeze. Poles become impossible to manipulate with heavy gloves. The shelter fabric whips violently in the wind. Establishing their position takes over an hour. During that hour, they are losing core temperature. During that hour, the frozen moisture in their clothing is working against them. The Royal Marines build snow shelters. This technique is ancient. It requires no manufactured components that can fail. The tools required are an entrenching tool and knowledge. Within 40 minutes, they have established snow holes that provide complete protection from the wind. The temperature inside a properly constructed snow hole stabilizes at approximately -5 degrees, regardless of external conditions. -5 sounds cold until you understand that outside it is -34 with wind chill pushing effective temperature below -50. The snow hole is saving their lives, and it costs nothing but knowledge and effort. Both teams wait out the weather. Both are cold, but the SEAL team is fighting their equipment while the Royal Marines are resting comfortably in shelters designed by 10,000 years of human cold weather experience. This is not a fair comparison. It was never going to be a fair comparison. The Royal Marines have been preparing for exactly this moment for over 50 years. The SEALs have been preparing for a broader range of missions that did not prioritize this specific capability. Hour 30. The weather has moderated, both teams resume movement. And this is where the word humiliation begins to apply, though not in the way you might expect. The humiliation is not about weakness, it is about the moment when supremely capable operators realize that their capabilities are mismatched to the environment. The SEAL team's clothing systems have degraded significantly. The frozen moisture has reduced insulation effectiveness by an estimated 40%. Battery-powered heating elements have failed. The lithium cells simply do not function reliably below -25 Celsius. The advanced membranes have stiffened to the point where they restrict movement. The operators are cold, increasingly fatigued, and facing a situation their training did not adequately prepare them for. 2 team members are showing early signs of frostnip on their extremities. One operator's boot system is failing because the modern materials have become brittle in the extreme cold. They are 48 hours into a 72-hour exercise, and they are fighting for survival rather than executing a mission. The Royal Marines are tired but functional. Their equipment is performing exactly as expected. Their movement rate is consistent. Their casualty count is 0. They are not comfortable. Antarctica does not allow comfort, but they are surviving with margin to spare. They will reach the extraction point. The only question is whether the Americans will reach it with them. Hour 36. The decision point. The SEAL team leader faces an impossible choice. 2 operators are now borderline cold casualties. Continuing the movement risks serious injury. The mission parameters specified no external support, but the mission parameters did not anticipate this level of equipment failure and physical degradation. After consultation with his team and honest assessment of their condition, he makes the call. Emergency extraction request. I want to be very clear about what this moment represents. This is not cowardice. These are some of the most courageous humans alive. This is not physical weakness. These operators have completed training that would break most professional athletes. This is professional judgment. The team leader recognized that continuing would risk lives without meaningful training benefit. The lesson had already been learned. The gap had been exposed. Continuing to push would add injury without adding knowledge. The Royal Marines reached the extraction point at hour 68. All members ambulatory minor, cold injuries treated in the field. Mission complete. When they linked up with the American team at the extraction point, there was no celebration. There was something more valuable. There was conversation. There was knowledge transfer. There was professional respect combined with honest assessment of what had happened and why. Now let me tell you why this outcome was inevitable, and why it reflects no shame on the SEAL operators who experienced it. The explanation lies in 60 years of different strategic priorities. When NATO was established, different nations were assigned different roles based on geography and capability. Norway's northern flank was identified as a critical vulnerability. Soviet forces could sweep through Finnmark and threaten Atlantic shipping lanes. Someone had to be able to fight there in winter conditions. The British, with their existing Royal Marine capability and their historical relationship with Norway, accepted this mission. This was not a training exercise added to existing requirements. This was existential mission definition. The Royal Marines would fight in Arctic and Antarctic conditions, or NATO's northern strategy would fail. Every training hour, every equipment decision, every doctrinal development for the past 60 years has been shaped by this requirement. Cold weather warfare is not something the Royal Marines learned. It is what the Royal Marines are. American strategic priorities during the same period were different. Power projection across global theaters. Maritime dominance. The ability to strike anywhere on Earth within hours. Counterterrorism, counterinsurgency. These missions required versatile forces who could adapt to any environment, rather than specialists optimized for specific conditions. The SEALs became extraordinarily capable at an enormous range of missions, but that breadth came with a cost. You cannot be the best at everything. You cannot optimize for all environments simultaneously. The SEAL Cold Weather Training Program is excellent by any objective standard. Kodiak, Alaska provides genuine winter warfare experience. Cold water immersion during Bud-S creates tolerance for discomfort. But tolerance and mastery are different things. A training module completed during a career does not equal a capability bred into unit culture over 6 decades. The SEALs were not failed by their individual preparation. They were failed by the comparison between a training program and a way of life. Here is the deeper truth that this scenario reveals, and it applies far beyond military operations. There is a difference between capability and specialty. The SEALs are capable of operating in cold weather. The Royal Marines specialize in it. Capability means you can do something. Specialty means you cannot be beaten at it. When capability meets specialty in the specialty's home environment, the outcome is predictable. This does not mean the SEALs are inferior. In maritime interdiction operations, in close quarters combat, in the specific mission sets they have optimized for over decades, The SEALs are virtually unmatched. In a hostage rescue scenario, in a ship takedown, in the urban raids that define the war on terror, SEAL capabilities exceed what almost any other unit can deliver. They are specialists too. They are specialists in different things. The humiliation in our title is not about one unit being better than another. The humiliation is the moment of recognition, the moment when elite operators, accustomed to excelling at everything they attempt, confront a domain where their excellence is insufficient. That moment is painful. It is also invaluable. Because that moment is where learning begins. Let me tell you what happened after this exercise, because this is where the story becomes hopeful rather than simply competitive. American Special Operations Command analyzed the results honestly. They did not make excuses. They did not dismiss the comparison as unfair. They asked a simple question: what can we learn? The answer was, a lot. Exchange programs between U.S. Special Operations and Royal Marine Mountain leaders have expanded significantly. Since 2010, American operators now spend more time training in genuine Antarctic and Arctic conditions. Equipment procurement has begun incorporating lessons from British cold weather experience. Doctrine is evolving to recognize the difference between cold tolerance and cold mastery, and the British are learning from the Americans in return. SEAL, physical conditioning programs have influenced Royal Marine fitness standards. American maritime interdiction techniques have been adopted by British forces. Technology developed by American defense contractors has been integrated into British operations. The relationship is not one-directional. It is a genuine exchange between allies who recognize each other's strengths. This is what makes NATO more than just a treaty. It is a learning system. Each member nation brings specific capabilities forged by their geography, their history, their strategic requirements. When these capabilities are shared, when the hard lessons experienced by one nation become the training improvements of another, the entire alliance grows stronger. The Royal Marines who walked out of Antarctica that day did not walk out because they were superior warriors. They walked out because 6 decades of institutional investment had prepared them specifically for that challenge. The SEALs who required extraction did not require it because they were inferior warriors. They required it because their institution had made different investments in different capabilities. Let me tell you something about the nature of elite military forces that most people do not understand. Every unit has a shadow. Every area of excellence is balanced by an area of relative weakness. The resources spent mastering one domain are resources not spent on another domain. The training hours dedicated to one capability are hours not dedicated to different capabilities. This is not failure. This is mathematics. There are only so many hours. There are only so many resources. Choices must be made. The Royal Marines chose to be cold weather specialists. That choice made them extraordinary in environments like Antarctica. That same choice meant they were not the primary British force for other mission types. The SEALs chose versatility across domains. That choice made them deployable anywhere against almost any target. That same choice meant they would never match true environmental specialists in those specialists' home environments. Neither choice is wrong. Both are optimizations for different strategic requirements. What would be wrong is failing to recognize these trade-offs. What would be wrong is believing that elite means best at everything. What would be wrong is refusing to learn from scenarios like the one I have described. The modern answer to this challenge is integration, joint training, combined exercises, shared doctrine. When American and British forces deploy together, they deploy with complementary capabilities. American strengths cover British gaps. British strengths cover American gaps. The combined force is more capable than either force alone. This is why exercises like the one I described are so valuable, not because they determine who is better, but because they reveal who is better at what. That knowledge allows commanders to task organize forces appropriately. It allows planners to account for limitations honestly. It allows training programs to address gaps that only become visible under pressure. Consider what would happen if American and British forces had to actually conduct extended operations in Antarctic conditions. Not an exercise, an actual mission. The smart commander would put the Royal Marines forward in the survival and movement phases. The smart commander would use SEAL capabilities for specific objectives where their skills provide advantage. The smart commander would combine both forces' strengths while minimizing exposure to their relative weaknesses. That is how alliances win wars. That is how professional militaries fight. I want to leave you with a thought about what this scenario really reveals. It reveals that true professionalism means honest self-assessment. The SEAL team leader who called for extraction was not admitting defeat. He was demonstrating professional judgment. He recognized that his team had reached the limit of their capability in that specific environment. He prioritized his people's safety over his ego. He made the call that allowed everyone to go home and learn from the experience rather than pushing until someone died proving a point. That is what professional looks like. Not never failing. Never failing is impossible. Professional means recognizing your limits, respecting them, and working to expand them. The SEALs who went through that experience returned to their commands with knowledge they could not have gained any other way. They understood at a visceral level why certain techniques matter, why certain equipment matters, why certain institutional investments matter. That knowledge made them more valuable, not less. And the Royal Marines gained something too. They gained confirmation that their 60 years of cold weather investment had produced world-class capability. They gained respect from elite allies who now understood what Royal Marine training actually produces. They gained partners who would advocate for combined training, for shared doctrine, for the kind of integration that makes alliances actually work. The next time you see a story about military forces competing, remember this: the most important outcome is not who wins. The most important outcome is what everyone learns. Exercises exist to expose gaps before combat exposes them. Training failures are cheap. Combat failures cost lives. Every lesson learned in an exercise is a lesson that does not have to be learned under fire. If you found this analysis valuable, subscribe now, because next week I am covering something that nobody has examined in this depth before. Why German mountain troops and British commandos developed completely opposite approaches to the same alpine terrain, and what happened when they finally went head-to-head in a NATO exercise. The results challenge everything you think you know about mountain warfare. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss it. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me which elite forces comparison you want to see next. I read every comment, and your suggestions directly shape which videos I prioritize. If you learned something today, share this video with someone who would appreciate understanding how special operations actually works. Not the movie version, the reality. Remember that Antarctica does not negotiate. It does not care about your reputation or your budget or your previous achievements. It only cares whether you have prepared for its specific challenges. The forces that walk out are the forces that respected this truth. The forces that get carried out are the forces that learned this truth the hard way. There is no shame in learning. There is only shame in refusing to learn. And judging by how American cold weather doctrine has evolved since exercises like this one, the SEALs learned exactly what they needed to learn. That is what professionals do. That is what makes an alliance strong. That is why these comparisons matter beyond simple entertainment. Until next time, stay warm out there, and remember that sometimes the old ways survive because they work. 10,000 years of human cold weather experience has produced knowledge that technology cannot replace. The units that remember this walk out. The units that forget it become lessons for those who come after.